Hello friends, James Corbett here, CorbettReport.com with a thought for the day. One of the questions that I get in constantly through the website, and I mean every week without fail, is, James, what books do you recommend reading? And that's just such a large and overwhelming question that my answer tends to be, well, I've recommended hundreds of books, literally hundreds of books over the years. Please go back through the podcast archives and there are plenty of references. But I know that's not satisfying, you want a specific list. So instead of regenerating that list every week, why not just do a video and point people to that? So let's go through some books. And again, this is just a smattering of a sampling of some of the books that I think are worth reading, but these are some of them anyway. And I'll start with one that I'm currently devouring, Myth, Lies, and Oil Wars by William Engdahl, a great researcher and a very valuable book about the oligarchy and how it really functions, including things that that even a lot of the alt media don't really talk about or cover. So very, very important. Lots of valuable information. As you see, I'm only part of the way through the book, but I'm definitely getting a lot of info out of this, and I'm sure that will translate into a podcast episode in the near future. Of course, anything by William Engdahl is probably worth reading. Seeds of Destruction, I talk about all the time, is a great example of that. Another person that I think you should be reading, Michel Chossudovsky, of course, GRTV, Global Research. He has lots of books. His latest is The Globalization of War, but this is one, I think, from the 1980s, The Globalization of Poverty and the New World Order. Great book with lots of good, solid, hard data about various countries in Africa and Asia and how they have been usurped by the IMF World Bank hegemon. Very, very interesting information there. Guest that I've had on numerous times on the podcast now, James Perloff. Of course, the best book on the Council on Foreign Relations you're ever going to read, The Shadows of Power. Absolute must-read. On the 9/11 subject, Mark Gaffney, Black 9/11, one of the few books actually dealing with the billions of dollars, at least, that were swindled on 9/11 itself. Very, very important. The money trail of 9/11, as I constantly stress. Excellent, slim little volume here on the anthrax deception, the 2001 anthrax deception by Graeme MacQueen. Great little book. Please listen to my interview with him where we go through some of the details, but I definitely recommend this. It's, as I say, a very slim volume, but gets to the point and says it in a very compelling manner. Any number of other books that we're leaving out here that I don't physically have with me. Patrick Wood's Technocracy Rising, of course, must read. I hope people will get that. On the fiction side of things, because it's not all nonfiction all the time, people might remember I recently talked to Simon Crims of SimonCrims.com? I don't remember if that's his website, so I'll put that in the show notes so that you can find it. But of course he did Roller Dog, which is a children's book, an illustrated children's book with lots of very lushly detailed illustrations of various, well, things exposing the New World Order in various ways. Very, very interesting, and so much detail in these pictures. You literally can spend, well, I've spent hours going through this book with my son, and absolutely, there's so much detail in here. And actually, Simon also sent me the original print of this particular Congress critter depiction, which I found quite compelling in a strange way. So thank you for that, Simon. I do appreciate that. I hope people will check out that book. It's available as a free PDF or ebook download, but you can of course also order the physical copy, which I suggest you do. Also on the fiction note, Sibel Edmonds, The Lone Gladio. I know I talked about it when it came out. I hope you had a chance to read it. If not, please do. It's fiction about Gladio B, and it's such a compelling read. It really is a very interesting novel in and of itself, let alone all of the details that it's revealing about Gladio B, the very real details of the very real Gladio B program, couched in fiction, so that, you know, it's compelling, and it's a great way to introduce this to other people who might never ever look into such subjects. Of course, Sibel Edmonds' Classified Woman is also a must-read if you're into the non-fiction side of what she actually did at her time in the FBI and then her case afterwards, fighting with the FBI. And getting completely off of the truth subjects, I guess, people always ask me also about my personal literary tastes. Of course, that's the thing I was actually trained in. That's my education background. So, for my money, best book of the English language, William Faulkner, Absalom, Absalom. It is not for everyone. It is a very difficult read, but I love it. I love it, but most people won't, so don't take it as a recommendation. I don't want to be blamed for it when you don't like it. And Best book in any language ever. I don't know, that's a pretty tall order. But one that I started about, I don't know, probably 12 or 13, no, maybe 14 or 15 years ago at this point. Still haven't completed. In Search of Lost Time, À la recherche de temps perdu by Marcel Proust. It's beautiful, it's exquisitely written, it's wonderful. Again, it's not for most people. Most people would find it horribly boring or whatever, but I love it. I'm on volume 5, and it's took me 15 years to get here. It's a 3,000-page novel, so take your time. Maybe make it a lifelong quest. Anyway, those are just a handful, a smattering, a sampling of some suggestions of what to read. But as I say, really, I have recommended hundreds of books over the years, so please go back through the archives, and when you're listening to a podcast and you hear a good book recommendation, write it down. That's it for today. Thank you for, as always, for tuning in. I'm going to talk to you again real soon. James Corbett, CorbettReport.com.